Okay, let's get things started here. Welcome everybody once again to the Meat and Potato Show, Conservative Talk and Awesome Rock. I am your host, Christopher Mader, and of course the candidate interviews roll on here at the Meat and Potatoes 2012 Conservative Media Network. And my next guest, he is running for state representative as an independent in the 4th Worcester District. He's an avid sportsman who was president of the Leominster Sportsmen Association and a staunch supporter of the Second Amendment. He's a 1996 graduate of Bryant University with a Bachelor of Science and a Bachelor of Arts degree, and he works for IBM as a mobile technology architect. That sounds difficult. But talk about difficult, he's the father of 4 kids with triplets. So this guy doesn't get a whole heck of a lot of rest. His friends call him JP. Welcome to the show, Jacques Perrault. How are you today, JP? Welcome to the show.
I'm great. Thanks for having me. I think what you've been doing here, interviewing all the candidates, is great. Great public service, so I really appreciate you having me on.
I thoroughly enjoy doing this. I've been doing it. The show's been going since 2008 and 2010. I got this crazy idea to start interviewing candidates, and every election cycle, I mean, I've lost count, but I know it's well in excess of over 100, 125 candidates from across the country that I've spoken to, and I just thoroughly enjoy it. And yeah, thanks again. The honor is mine, sir. Believe me. Let's get right into this. I'm gonna quote a line that you put on your webpage, and I love it. There's a couple of other quotes that I'm gonna say on the show here from your webpage, and because I think they're completely spot on. So let's get right into it. It is time for Massachusetts citizens to rekindle the revolutionary spirit that created this great nation and reintroduce Beacon Hill to the concept of a government of the people, by the people, for the people. So, JP, is this what made you decide to run for office? Go ahead.
It really is. I think, we are really the seat of where it all began, and so many of the reasons why we decided to split from England, if we don't even have to look very hard, we're living many of those same reasons today.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, it's a big factor why I decided to run. I don't like where we've been headed. There's no clear sign to me that there'll be a change in direction. I feel very strongly that it's time for people to really take back the Commonwealth and to have a voice.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be a part of that. So that's really what drove me to do this. I have some good ideas that I think I can bring to bear. I do not want to take a boil the ocean approach. There will be experts who can cover the many areas that we need help in, because there are many. But I think with a 2-year term, you take the experts, you do one thing, you do it well, and you can be a force for positive change.
Yeah, very good. All the grassroots candidates, everybody I've interviewed, even when I was doing the interviews before in other election cycles, it's always the same. Everybody's on the same page, and this is one of the things I'm going to do at the symposium. There's going to be no debating, no finger pointing, pigeonhole questions. We all know this. Everybody knows what the problems are. They're right in front of our face. And this is why I love talking to all of you guys on the show, because it is. In fact, my wife and I was laughing with my wife. I said, I've got a problem with these interviews. She's like, what is that? I said, it's like, I'm running out of questions. She's like, what do you mean? I said, because we're all on the same page. I can only ask these questions so many times of these people without sounding like I'm beating a dead horse, because we all know. I mean, this is a fact, isn't it? Isn't it, JP?
It is, and I think that's a good thing, that not necessarily you run out of questions, but I have watched many of your interviews, and I'm very encouraged by the candidates, because we are all talking along the same lines. We identify the same problems, and moreover, I've knocked over 1,000 doors, and I'm getting a very good response. What I'm saying is resonating with people, and so we're not off base. You know that as unbalanced as Beacon Hill might be right now, they have to be aware of those problems. And I think part of the problem isn't that Democrats have bad ideas, and I think you mentioned I'm running as an independent. I actually am on the Republican ticket.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
That's all right, but I think both sides have good ideas. I think part of the problem is that there isn't enough dialogue between them. I've talked to a few sitting representatives, and they say, one of them said, there's been a guy sitting next to me for 2 years now. He's never even introduced himself. I know who he is, of course, but you can't solve problems even if you're aware of them if you're not talking. And that is one of the first things I do on day one, is go around and start meeting people, because you have to have that relationship if you're going to solve the problems, even if everyone agrees that yes, those are the problems.
Sure. Let's move right into the economy first. The inventory tax. Again, part of this is from your website. It's a great site, too, by the way. Let's talk. The inventory tax drives manufacturing businesses out of the state. And does anybody actually really know what an inventory tax is? I certainly don't. And is it not out of the realm of possibility that Beacon Hill will someday tax our personal belongings as inventory? Well, considering that they have no problem with automatic gas taxes and technology taxes, and what do you think? And what are you hearing from businesses in your district, out in the Leominster area? Go ahead.
So I think, given the chance, if the people let them run rampant, they would tax anything. They are, like you said, starting to try to be a little more surreptitious about these automatic gas tax hikes, and thank God, even though the minimum wage increase passed, it wasn't indexed to inflation. But they really need to go back to the people for any taxes either direction, and they're starting to try to get away from that simply because maybe it's an inconvenience for them. I don't know. The manufacturing tax is a smaller part of the excise tax, but it does drive manufacturing businesses out of Massachusetts. Right. Thousands of jobs lost that could be tied to this. And I think by getting rid of it, not only will we start to reverse that trend, but we'll start to see companies that we're going to our neighboring states that don't have this tax come in. So it's a longer term part of what I want to do for the economy is sort of repeal that to start reviving our manufacturing, especially in cities like Leominster, which will be my district. That is a gateway city. You know, it anchors the regional economy. We have so many assets with unrealized potential that even though the mayor has been doing a great job, and city council has been doing a great job of doing their part to invest in economic development, they really need Beacon Hill to do their part to help us realize our full potential. So inventory tax is a part of that. Another part, which I'm sure you'll get to, is the contracting, the independent contractors law that it was changed in 2004.
Yeah, go on about that. Keep going. Yeah.
So prior to 2004, the law was such that you could be a contractor for someone doing exactly what, for example, my wife is a registered landscape architect. Right. And if a firm had too much business, or they wanted or they just didn't want to bring on another employee, they could have brought her on as a contractor, an independent contractor. With her expertise, she has a degree in landscape architecture from Amherst, and my wife, should pay for her own health care, should pay taxes, should be registered with the Department of Revenue as a contractor, but she would be able to charge a very good wage and do work for that company, and that architecture firm could hire several people like her, 10, 11, 12.
Sure.
A lot of businesses would grow. They might have just the owner, for example, but they might have 10, 15, 20 independent contractors working for them. When they changed that law in several subtle but important ways that essentially caused it so that contractors cannot perform work for another company that is substantially related to the work that company does. So essentially, my wife can't do landscape architecture for a landscape architecture firm.
What? Are you serious?
Yes, and the history behind it is a little murky. There's a lot of speculation about what happened, and I'm not going to go into that. But it's been on the books, and it's cost not just thousands of jobs, but tens of thousands of jobs. Right. And just by making a couple changes, it'll be the first bill I submit. I've been working with a organization called New Jobs for Massachusetts. I think they have an ambitious goal of over 1 million jobs, but I think even modest gains by changing this law closer to back the way it was in 2004. It'll be overnight. The contractors will be able to start, working for companies.
Working again.
Working again, exactly. It'll instantly, you have a like, hooray, it was, down 1.6%. And then around the middle of the article, they're talking about outside of the 128 belt where, that hasn't really leaked out there yet. It's still at 7.2% in Leominster. We have easily 2,000 people here in Leominster that are either unemployed or underemployed that could benefit from this change literally overnight.
Sure.
Not the earlier tax, the manufacturing inventory tax, that will take a little longer to kick in because companies have to realize that they have to make capital investments. But the independent contract law, that could take effect literally overnight.
Excellent. Yeah, that would sound like a great idea. One of the questions that I had asked when I was talking to Jesse Lemanek, he's running for state rep, I think 18th Worcester District. I was talking to him a couple of weeks ago. One of the questions I posed to him, and because you just mentioned what you said about the contractors law, we have politicians who say, we've got to create jobs. Jobs is my number one issue. I'm going to create jobs. And then they get up there and they pass these regulations, these legislations, like you just said about the contractors law. I mean, it's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. I mean, how do these guys justify something like this?
That's part of the frustration. And I know when you're speaking with him, and virtually every other candidate you've spoken with, is the voter fatigue, the apathy, the frustration.
Yeah.
They just, even though they vote, they don't see the change. And as far as jobs are concerned, getting jobs, creating jobs isn't enough. You have to create high-paying or high-skilled jobs that pay a good wage. Minimum wage is important, it's an entry point, but is never going to get people from a point, from subsidy to self-reliance, or a point where they can really thrive and improve their quality of life. And, quality of life isn't not having to work the weekend. It's being able to go on vacation. It's being able to save for college. It's much more than people perceive it and accept it to be today. That really bothers me.
And one of the things getting back to my question and just basically backing up my own question, not only, creating the jobs and creating good high-paying jobs and manufacturing jobs, technology jobs, like I said in my question, get rid of the square peg in the round hole. Stop making all this stuff that makes it difficult for a business to start. I mean, it just gets ridiculous. But let's move on here. Again, let's juxtapose welfare and the fact that we don't have so many jobs. And again, this is from your Facebook site. And again, just great stuff that you have up here. Meaningful reforms that stand the test of time will not be possible unless Beacon Hill regains the trust of the taxpayers. It will be more critical than ever for all legislators to work together to ensure legislation provide a level of accountability that engenders the trust needed to adequately fund them. Now, here in Massachusetts, we've got a welfare and an EBT state that is just out of control. And if you combine the two recipients, we're looking at close to 1 million people. I think the EBT has shot up to like 900,000 people. If you throw in all the welfare and just the unemployed people, you're looking at about 1 million plus or minus Massachusetts residents. Now, considering our population is around 6 million plus or minus, I mean, that's quite a chunk of change. And that's a big drag on our budget. Now let's factor in unfunded liabilities. Let's factor in union pensions and all the other stuff that has to be paid for under our budget. I mean, we're looking at a serious economic disaster coming to the state. I mean, we could quickly become another California, dead broke with citizens and businesses heading out the door, couldn't we?
Sure. I mean, when you look at the cost of subsidized healthcare, education, and I'm not saying these are unimportant things. They are very important. Pensions. And a couple other line items, just the 5 or 6 there, make up, I think, 87% of our $36.5 billion budget.
Right.
That leaves 13% for everything else, including things like economic development, which is a small part of that. And so, yeah, and that's getting smaller. And it's funny that you brought up that there's 1 million out of the 6 million in the state. I came across one of the very first reports that was made to Beacon Hill on the topic of welfare. And at the time, I think there were, I think it was, I can't remember how many residents, but the unemployment rate, or the welfare rate rather, was came into about 2%. And they were a little less politically correct, I think, then. They factored in the insane, and a few other words which we don't use today or are afraid to use. So it's gone from 2% back then. It's always been a problem to really out of control now. That said, and going back to what I said on my website, that part of why I think the problem can't be solved is it makes for better media coverage, better press if they're arguing about things like fraud and things like civil rights violations by trying to prove that somebody is or is not trying to get a job. I think the vast majority of people in the welfare system, I want to believe this, really are trying to move up and out of that system. And I think if we start focusing on the ones who are motivated and want to move up and out of the system, I think we'll get a much bigger bang for our buck. Trying to force someone who is gaming the system knowingly and doesn't want to do anything about it because they don't have to, they're living off of somebody else's money, that's a losing proposition. You're never going to convince them otherwise.
Sure.
I think we need to focus on the folks who want to move up and up. We make sure that some of the changes that this session put in place, which I think some of them are pretty good, we make sure that those programs stay adequately funded. We have a history of having good ideas and then remove the funding when it doesn't form inside of a year.
Yeah. That's unbelievable. That's insane. Anyway.
I think there are good ideas out there. I think we don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think we just need to take several of the approaches we tried in the past and put them together a different way. And we need to work together to do that.
Excellent. Excellent. Great. Sounds like an answer to me. It really does. Let's go over some Second Amendment stuff here. And specifically, let's talk about House Bill 4376. Now, what I want you to do, what I'm going to do is I want you to take over and talk about House Bill 43776. Still waiting the governor's signature. I'll let you talk about it. And what I'm going to do is I've got some stuff here on for the questions. Again, from the Gun Owners Action League, there was an article that again was on your site, so I copied and pasted a bunch of the changes that are in the law. But I want you to go ahead, and here's a quote here, folks, that he puts again on his that JP puts on his website. Massachusetts punishes the law-abiding because it is easier than facing the truth that it is incapable of enforcing existing laws. JP, why don't you talk about House Bill 4376?
I'd love to. And, I have to give a big shout out to Goal and Jim Wallace. There is no other action, organization out there that I can think of that works harder for their members. And it's a great example of what happens when you can reach your members and when the members really care about something. I mean, there were so many calls. I don't know how many times their fax machines ran out of paper. It was just really, really great to see people doing something instead of complaining about something. So that was very exciting. And out of that came something equally exciting. Here in Massachusetts, of all places, which is, very gun unfriendly, we made some very, very positive changes. Among them, there is a very complex system of licensure in Mass. There's FIDs, there's Class B licenses, there's two types of Class A licenses. So basically, they got rid of the Class B license. So they're starting to slowly collapse that. And when I say going back to being incapable of enforcing the laws, that's not a slight at our law enforcement agencies. They do an excellent job. They do the best they can with the limited resources they've given. These laws are unnecessarily complex, and oftentimes not only counterintuitive, but they sort of just you can't meet the spirit of the law with these things. So
let me hang on. Let me just interrupt you. What you said about Class B. It says right here, LTC, the Class B license was eliminated. Going forward, there is only one license to carry, LTC license to carry. Chiefs now have to put denials in writing so that the burden of proof is on the police chief to defend the denial or restriction in district court. Also, for the first time, gun owners can appeal their LTC restrictions in district court. And if I can back up a little bit about FID, it says here, chiefs must first petition the court to deny someone his or her FID card. And I remember in Northborough, I went a while ago for my FID, and the police chief there was like, no, you can't have it. And I was flabbergasted. I was like, well, who the hell is this guy? Who's he? Well, that's the law. The police chief can deny you. Why? Because the guy just doesn't like me? I mean,
Yeah,
seriously,
we're very lucky
go ahead.
for that. And that was probably probably the most significant change. It took away the discretion from the police chief. So if you meet all the statutory requirements, he has to give it to you unless he submits in writing why he thinks you shouldn't have it to a judge,
Sure.
which I think is fine, because then it goes to the judicial system.
Yeah, it's a public hearing now, right? You have a chance to defend yourself, right?
Before you were SOL, and now you can go to court and say, here's my side of the story,
right.
which it's getting back to maybe bringing the Constitution back into this, not being guilty until proven so, right? So that was a big piece. Like I said, I grew up hunting. When I was a kid, I could get the FID earlier. It was actually good for life until the law changed that. Now they changed it with this bill so that kids can apply for an FID when they're 14. So when they turn 15, the day they turn 15, they can go ahead and get it. It used to be, even though you could have one at 15, you could only apply for it at 15. So you basically miss an entire hunting season. Because in order to get an FID, you'd have to take hunter safety, which usually happens in the fall. So you'd miss an entire hunting season. You'd have to lug your father's gun around and carve up his deer for him. It's not as much fun. So that was a positive change.
Good.
And I think another very positive thing, I was very concerned about the mental health legislation they were trying to bundle in there. I think that's a very important issue, and I think they were doing that a big disservice by trying to lump so much of that in there. You take a touchy issue like gun legislation, throw in some not even well-intentioned and definitely ill-conceived legislation, and no one's ever going to want to touch gun legislation again for a while, so you're going to mess up, make a touchy issue like mental health even more difficult. So in the end, they ended up just putting something in there that said, you can't be denied a license for simply voluntarily going to get some help.
Right, I was going to read that. It does say right here, language is added protecting people who voluntarily seek mental health help, preventing them from being listed as a prohibited person. This also gives protection to people who voluntarily seek help for drug and alcohol abuse issues. So there you go. That's actually, and one of the things I want to move on to is, because one of the big problems was because of mental health, there's a concern about, we have to go and confiscate the guns. And I want to move down the law a little bit here. We added language providing protection of property for firearm owners. And this is very important here, folks. Now, if firearms are confiscated, the licensing authority is required at that time to inform the person in writing of their ability to transfer their firearms to an independent licensed individual. So correct me if I'm wrong here, JP, but basically if the cops have intentions of seizing your arms, they have to do it in writing, and you have a chance to go to your neighbor who might be a licensed firearms person and say, look, hang on to my guns for me. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, that's brilliant, because that happened to me again when I was a kid. I had a black powder rifle, a Thompson Center, 54 caliber, really expensive but nice gun. My parents were going through a rough patch, and at one point, my mother just asked that the police come and take the firearms out of the house, which my father had already done. He had taken them out because he thought something like that might happen. And he had given them to a friend, even though it wasn't part of the law then. But my gun was in my closet, and he had just overlooked it. And the police found it and confiscated it. I didn't get that back for 18 years.
Jesus.
In fact, I forgot I had it. One of my friends that I grew up with in school ended up joining that department. He goes, dude, he's like, there's a an old gun here.
There's a gun with your name on it.
Is that yours? Like, I forgot all about that. But yeah, it happens all the time. People would lose, lose their property without any due process.
Unbelievable. Military personnel, too. And, I mean, we hear all this stuff. Feinstein said it. Even Nancy Pelosi has echoed it. Everyone thinks that, because you've come back from Iraq or Afghanistan or whatever, that somehow you're mentally ill. Well, of course, the mental health part here of the bill will actually help our veterans. We extended the time period an active duty military member has to become licensed or renew their license from 90 to 180 days. We exempted active duty military members from having to take the mandatory gun safety training classes. Well, that makes sense considering that they're in the military. I would imagine gun safety is one of the things that they teach you when you join the military.
Yeah, I don't even want to get into how they treat our veterans, but yeah, I'm glad they put that in there.
Very good. The original bill would have criminalized private sales of firearms between licensed individuals. This section was struck, and private sales remain legal. Now, I'm a little confused about private sales. Can you go into a little bit of the minutia of that? Because that's kind of a murky thing for me.
So, having never sold a gun to another person, I'm of the mind that you don't sell a gun.
Right. No, I agree. Right.
You go and bury it in the yard.
Yeah, you don't put it on eBay, right?
So I can't definitively say how that changed.
Okay.
I think if you're going to transfer it to somebody, I was of the mind that you used to have to go to someone with an FFL, which is basically a dealer, and transfer it that way. I really don't know how that works, so I can't say.
And then there's other things here that, again, the court you have to go to court to prove that a person's unsuitable. Original bill would have made FID applicant list a reason for applying. This was struck for the legislation. The original bill would have given licensing authority the ability to place restrictions. I mean, as much as when I was reading about this bill going through, and I first heard DeLeo, after screaming and yelling that day up on Beacon Hill after Sandy Hook, I was like, oh, here we go. Every time there's a shooting, you just know these fools, as the Beatles used to say, the fools on the hill. It's just, here we go. They're gonna take our guns away. Here we go again. But you guys worked out a halfway decent bill here. I mean, I've been going over some of the details here. I mean, it's not bad. I mean, how do you feel about it?
I'm quite happy about it. I think there's still ways to go. I don't think there's any reason you should have to conceal a gun. I think it's a big pain. I think, again, if you have gone through the necessary training, there's really no reason that you shouldn't be able to. It doesn't matter how whether you're carrying it open or concealed. I think the licensure structure is still very complicated. But overall, I think it was very positive. It's a completely different bill than originally came out of DeLeo's study.
Sure.
And I think really the shining star out of all of this is going back to how we opened this question, was showing what people can do when they get involved.
Sure.
Unfortunately, guns usually aren't a hot topic unless it's in the news because somebody got shot. And it's not, I feel very strongly about it. I feel like any constitutional right, it should not be infringed, taken from us. And I'm glad that we could demonstrate that when something is important enough to the people that, we can make a difference.
Do you think that when you see a shooting like Sandy Hook, what is it, Virginia Tech colleges? I mean, we've got the Aurora, Colorado shooting, Loeffner, who shot the congresswoman. Basically all of them. As horrible as they are, do you think anti-gun people, the press, even certain legislators, I mean, they jump on this? They champion the cause? It's like, oh, look, here's another reason why we've got to take guns away from the people. And this actually kind of folds into my next question. As we move more towards a militarized police and into a more disorganized and disarmed citizenry, because this is what I mean about our legislators, they always jump on it. I mean, what does this spell for us as a free society? And do we delude ourselves into thinking that we're still in a free society? Yeah, really.
To the first part, of course, I mean, there's always going to, when there's a sensational story that sells paper, sells airtime, and happens to line up with, something you as a legislator feel strongly about and haven't been able to, they're always going to hop on that. Yeah. You always have to look back to a couple fundamental truths of how you were really trying to solve the problem. None of the laws that are in place would have prevented that. None of the new things that they are generally proposing would prevent that. Just punishes the folks who are already law-abiding. I'm all for well thought out legislation, well-reasoned, which is another good reason this took so long. We spent many months, 6 months or more, coming out with this. And like I said, the first bill was very draconian. The bill we ended up with, that came out of committee,
you're looking at 180 a day now. There's some statistics that I don't have them in front of me, but I've written about this in my blog under an expose I called "The Personification of Evil." And I mean, we used to go from like, you know, maybe 200 to 300 SWAT raids a day. A year, and up until about from like the 70s up until about 2001, since 9/11, averaging plus or minus, good years, bad years, and now we're up to like 180 a day all across the country. And I mean, we're just kicking in doors. There was just a story I read about Evansville police. They kicked in the door, wrong house.
Wrong house, right?
You know, and it's like we hear more and more of these stories, and they're busting in doors for, you know, just somebody selling a bag of weed, or just, you know, they didn't pay their taxes, or maybe, according to this Evansville thing, somebody said something about the police on the internet. I mean, come on, it's, you know, you can't knock on the door anymore.
They have to do their due diligence, and I think there's 2 points I think that could help reel that in. First of all, they can't just go and do this. They still have to go through the judicial system. I think, personally, that those are either being fast-tracked or just being handed out, sort of like a hall pass. They just say, you know, my hall pass had it on the deck, mister. Just go take a handful and knock down the doors you want. The judges, I think, have to take more accountability for handing these things out. The other reason I think that the number is accelerating is I'm torn on it. You know, we live in a society today, like it or not, where we are really in the midst of Big Brother. We have amazing capabilities to bring technology to bear, and I think a lot of unsavory characters are being found out because of this, which I think is a good thing. On the other hand, we are having our privacy taken from us without any say in the matter.
Yeah.
And they're doing it saying that they're protecting us. Sure. And they've been doing that since, you know, they really started bringing it on after 9/11, and they've never turned back since. And I think that's a real problem. And we've only scratched the surface on what they are. Really, they're spying on the American people. I have a real problem with that. But that is not something that I'm going to be able to put a big dent in at Beacon Hill. I think that's something that's...
Yeah, that's a national problem.
Fomented by,
our federal.
President, I guess. I'll just say president.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, too, I mean, I agree with how you're not going to be able to make a big dent, but even at the state level, I mean, obviously the state has to say, well, do we want to adopt this? Is this what we want in our state? One of the organizations I'm working in is, it's called Act Now for Worcester, and they've been working to make cities and towns aware of sections 1021 and 1022 of the NDAA law, and we've managed to get a few of the towns to basically adopt legislation in their cities and town meetings that they're not going to follow through on 1021 and 1022, which is part of the indefinite detention of American citizens. And various towns around have said, no, we're not going to do that. Unfortunately, here in Worcester, and I was there, I filmed it and I wrote about it for the Worcester Herald. They just said, oh no, this is fine. We're gonna uphold it, and we're going to keep it going. So, so this does actually fall within the state level as far as what do we want to adopt here in our state. Would you agree on that?
From that perspective, anything that I can do at the state level, I'd be on board with. You know, I don't like these ideas of, for example, free speech zones. It sounds more like a concentration camp to me, where, you know, the press can't get anywhere near where a problem that the government doesn't want to know about is happening. I mean, that just sort of gives me a really bad feeling. If a reporter wants to take their life in their hands to get a story out, you know, so be it. They don't need to be protected. And that echoes all over the place. The government trying to tell small business owners how to run their businesses, telling people what kind of government they want. And
What do you think of the situation with the illegal children that are coming into the state? I mean, I know that a lot of the cities and towns have protested and they've managed to turn buses and some of the planes away, but we still have a lot of them that have already come here. So, I mean, how do you think we can solve this problem? And I'm not going to get really into it. We're coming up on a half hour. We're getting down there on the interview. But, I mean, my big thing is, you know, you and me as citizens, and you've got children that have to go to school, you know, you've got to get them immunized, get them registered, you got to get the birth certificate, you got to jump through all sorts of hurdles, make sure you got all your ducks in a row so that your kid can go to school. I mean, they're going to give these kids a pass. Oh, just send them to school. I mean, how fair is this? And what are some of your ideas?
You know, I say the one thing I tell a lot of my friends, we're so politically correct nowadays that we can't begin to correct the problem. So I make this very simple. I empathize with the children. I don't know. I can't begin to understand what they went through, but they don't belong. They don't belong here. You know, if we can help them in some way, what we have to do is apply the laws. Apply the laws we have. And if we can process them through the system and they want to become citizens, and ignoring the logistics and all of the stuff that goes behind not allowing that to happen, but we have our own problems to solve. We have veterans who can't get the benefits that these illegal immigrants are getting. You know, it's crazy that Governor Patrick is even considering giving licenses to illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
I mean, it just blows my mind, and it just drives me crazy. So I empathize with these people, but I have to draw the line. This is my country. We have our own problems, and we don't need more things like very serious influxes of disease. Not all of them are disease, but we don't have a plan behind bringing them in. They just ran out of room because there's no more room on the border. So now they're going to ship them to to Chicopee or to Edwards. And if they can give me a plan that, again, is well thought out, well reasoned, I will consider it. But I haven't seen anything like that. All I've heard is, government throws his hands up in the air saying, federal government said they're coming, and I don't have a say in the matter.
Oh, please.
That's not right.
Yeah. No, you do have state rights to fall, Patrick. Come on, let's go here. I mean, you can just say no, and that's, it does boggle the mind. So, what's next for you? Obviously, you're coming to the symposium. Thank you, sir, so much for attending. It's going to be a great night. I'm really, really excited to have you and everybody else there. But, I mean, what's going on with your campaign? We're entering primary season. It's right around the corner. So, what's happening for you?
It's very exciting. I just went through my second pair of shoes. So, again, you talked about the interviews you had in the past. Everybody's doing door knocking, and I am doing a ton of door knocking. That is the only way, especially that Republicans can really get a foothold and win in the state. And I've met a lot of great people. It's a lot of fun. I tell all my future constituents that they're going to have the best tanned, best in shape representative that they've seen in these many years.
Yeah, really.
A lot of door knocking. I've done over 1,000. I don't know what the precise number is. I have another couple thousand to hit. It is a write-in campaign for me. I came a little late to the game in getting my nomination papers in, so I'll need to get 150 votes on September 9th, but I have that well in hand. And then it's on to the general election. So, again, it's lots of door knocking, and that's really where the game's at.
Yeah. How do you feel, though? You feel like you said, 150, that's actually a small number that you need to get, and you said you're well in hand of getting that. Yeah, you feel good. You feel positive about this, don't you? I can hear it.
Yeah, I do. And if I'm not comfortable that I can get 150 votes for a primary, then getting the thousands that I need for the general would sort of be academic. So, it's, again, with the full-time job, with the 4 kids, God bless my wife for
yeah, you're a busy guy, I know.
I wouldn't be going through this if I didn't think it was a realistic possibility. We have such great support structure at home. The state, Charlie Baker, Karen Polito are really, really helping out. And we have great candidates. We support one another. So I'm very, very optimistic.
Great. Excellent. Give your website here, sir.
So my website is http://jp4rep.com. And you can find me on Twitter at j_Perrault or on Facebook at Perrault for State Representative.
Exactly. And I'll post everything up when I do the video. I'll post the links. Everything goes up there. You've seen how I do my interviews, so it's all going to be up there.
Put my phone number up there, too.
Sure, if you want me to.
There's no operator. You can, if you call, you will get me.
Excellent, excellent. Sure, I'll do that too. Yeah, don't give it out on the interview. Send it to my phone. So, well, it's in my phone, so I'll just retrace it and I'll put that up.
All my literature says no state secrets, so that's fine.
Okay. Hey, JP, thank you so much. Good luck, and I will see you on the 30th. Thank you so much for coming on to the show, sir. All right. Have a good day, sir.
Bye.
I love this job. I love this job. Absolutely amazing.